They're an expert in their field,
Right.
not in buying and selling houses.
That's right.
That's not what they do on a daily basis. How to listen. And that's actively listening is the number one thing I would recommend for a life coach. My job is...
It's very powerful. Thank you for sharing.
Of course. It matters.
It did to me.
It matters.
Which is important.
Yeah.
You know, and I would tell anyone listening, like if they're not having conversations like that with people like me that they work with, they're not having the right conversations.
Right.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Nest Podcast, where we discuss real estate, health, wealth, and life. Today's guest is Melissa Gaubert, realtor and life coach. Melissa, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me, Derek.
Of course. So listen, one of the big reasons I wanted to get you on, other than that I think you do amazing at what you do professionally, is I've been seeing you a lot on social media over the last year or so. Obviously that got my attention, you know, Anya and I started doing the podcast. But I don't remember seeing a lot of it before. What changed in your world? What were the catalysts that kind of made you more visible?
So I think in 2023, every year I set goals for myself, but one of my goals for 2023 was to show up in social media more and to start a YouTube channel. And so Once I set a goal, I'm super geeked out about achieving it. I don't like to fail at anything. And so I started showing up more and more and more. But to be fair, I kind of had that like perfectionist mentality. Like I wanted everything to be just right. But the feedback I kept getting from friends and mentors were people like you and your personality. And when you turn robotic, like no one really wants to watch that. So I've had to learn to show who I am, show who my personality is. And now I just kind of have the attitude of like, I'm going to give value. And it's going to be what it's going to be.
Just hit record.
Right.
Consistently.
Right.
Okay, so I didn't know about this YouTube channel thing. Mm-hmm. Has it started yet?
Or yeah.
Okay.
It's out there. So I love to interview people in the industry, and then I take little clips, and that's what goes on social media. But the full interview is what's out there on YouTube. I don't have a big audience or following or anything like that at this point, but I'm hoping to continue to grow and perfect that. See, there's that word again. And put content out there.
Constant 1% improvements over time, building blocks.
Right.
At some point, you have so much momentum, you'll be hard to catch.
Right.
I didn't know that. So we're actually living the same life right now.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the name of your channel?
It's not. It's just Melissa Gaubert.
Melissa Gaubert. Okay.
Yeah. It's nowhere near as fancy as what you're doing. I wish.
I didn't realize that. Okay. So a lot of the short form stuff I'm seeing on Facebook and Instagram, is that coming from some of the longer things you're doing, or are those like talking head type of things?
Yeah. So the short form stuff goes on social media. And so like I've interviewed attorneys, I've interviewed home inspectors. I'm working with builders now to highlight their product. Obviously these builders have their own representation, but I can still bring buyers to them. A lot of people don't know what all a community development offers or what the HOA covers or who the builder is. So for that, I'm focusing on local builders. And it's just fun. It's just fun to get out there and hang out with people you love doing business with. And I get to highlight them and what they offer and educate people along the way.
I imagine no one would turn down extra brand awareness.
No one has said.
I had no idea you were doing that. We talked a little bit before you came on, and I was completely oblivious to all of it because I only see Facebook Reels and stuff.
Yeah. Well.
Okay. So what I heard you say without saying it is that I'm going to be a guest on yours.
Yeah, can we just like copy and paste this? Because yours is so much better quality than mine.
Sure. What we'll do, we have some extra fancy software. We'll switch sides.
Okay.
Where I'll be in front of the bench.
Seat? I like that.
Yeah, we can do that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the inspiration? I mean, other than showing up differently, things have changed a little bit.
So obviously in my industry, we have to put ourselves out there, right? For me to get buyers and sellers, I have to put myself out there. And I've been licensed since 2009. So I get referral business. I love my referrals. I love working with family and friends, repeat clients who they send to me. But in order to reach strangers, I need a platform bigger than email or, picking up the phone and calling for sale by owners, things like that. And so social media, YouTube gives me the platform to let people, know a little bit about who I am, but more importantly, like the depth of knowledge that I have in being a real estate agent. And now throwing the life coaching into it, that's just a fun little mix. As you know, we get super intimate with our clients. You learn all about their finances. That's like their deep, dark secrets, right? I get to learn them on a day-to-day family basis and who they are. And so these platforms give me the ability to educate them, whether they work with me or not. It's still free education.
Sure.
And, hey, this is who I am, and this is how I can service you and help you achieve your goals.
It's a good way to stay in touch with former clients also.
Yeah.
A lot of us are probably guilty of not doing a lot of post-close follow-up, or if we do, not as regularly as we would like to.
Mm-hmm.
I had a former client. It's funny, we're talking about YouTube right now. A former client text messaged me earlier this week and said, hey, I saw the podcast. It looks great, all this stuff. And I said, well, hey, how did you see it? And he said he saw it on Facebook. And then I was like, well, how do you know about the podcast? And then we had put the link in the comments and stuff.
Right.
But he told me that the reason that he found it wasn't because he was just randomly scrolling. He had a client or a friend that he wanted to refer to me. And when he went to go look me up to send him some information, then he saw it.
Oh.
Right. So
Yeah.
then it was a way, this is very conversational. It was a way for him. He said, man, I felt like I was sitting at the table. It was cool. Right. So that's neat. I think for me, one big thing showing up different was we do this all the time. Mm-hmm. One thing we talked about off camera was one-to-one and one-to-many. Mm-hmm. People obviously need some information.
Right.
They need some knowledge. They want to feel comfortable with whatever they're doing, whether it's this or fixing a car in their garage. Mm-hmm. I had to reprogram our garage door opener the other day. Where did I go?
YouTube.
Right?
Absolutely.
So if you have a lot to share with one person, why not spend the same amount of time doing it and let 3,000 people see it?
Right.
And YouTube is the number one search engine. It's not actually Google.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's evergreen, I think is the content verbiage.
Right.
It's always there.
Yep. It's never going to go away. So you have to be careful what you put out there.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's why we bought what we bought. Cool. So are you on a schedule? Like, do you post? Do you schedule stuff? Do you do it when you get random inspiration? How much of it's planned?
All of it is planned. Every blue moon, I'll throw something just because I get inspired to whatever.
Sure.
All of it is planned, though. I typically do filming days, which sounds so cheesy, but it allows me to give the most value in a short period of time. So let's say I don't have clients on a particular date. And so I don't schedule months in advance. I schedule every Sunday night. I sit down and it's like, okay, what are the goals for this week? What am I focused on? What appointments do I have? And then a marketing day. So on those days, I usually, change clothes 2 or 3 times, do a handful of videos, and that way I have content for the week. And then there are times where okay, well, I know I have an appointment every day this week, which means hair and makeup every day this week. So I can go ahead and space those out. I mean, if I can stay home and work with no hair, makeup, and be in my PJs, I'm going to do that too. So I'm not going to film that day. So on those days that I batch content, it makes it easier to put that, the education out there, the value out there.
So we're in the process of kind of keeping that confined to a certain schedule too. It's like anything else. If you time block, A, it should happen, and then B, you can make sure all your other activities get accomplished.
Right.
You always know what's going to happen.
I think one of the biggest things that I like about time blocking is if you have to give that block up for something else, it's now become a conscious choice.
That's right.
Whereas when you don't block and you just go about your day with no rhyme or reason, next thing you know, it's time to climb into bed and you haven't accomplished anything. So let's say Monday morning, I'm committed to filming, and a client wants to go see a house. Well, of course, I'm going to go see the house with my client. I'm going to take care of their needs first. But it's a conscious, like, okay, I'm not doing what I said I was going to do on my schedule, and that's okay. But when am I going to move it to? Instead of just ignoring it, and then Friday comes and you're like, I haven't filmed anything. It's like, okay, I chose to do this showing. Yeah. Where am I going to move the filming to? Or sometimes that house becomes the filming, right? Like if it's a really great house, I might want to showcase that house. And my clients are usually pretty awesome about that.
And that's not actually a terrible transition either. It's my understanding that what's trending on Instagram and all of the reel type formats is more organic type, less stylized, highly produced content.
Yeah.
So clips from this would kind of fall in that category of being highly produced and stylized and stuff like that. Captions, the whole nine. Green screen ones, like shooting natively in the Instagram app. I hear apps always want you to stay on their platform.
Right.
So like take a screenshot of something, you put it behind you. You don't actually have to have a green screen.
Right.
And then you do a video like that. The other one is, which is a new term I learned yesterday, called a video meme.
What is a video meme?
So a video meme doesn't have to be related to even what the content is, like the message that you're trying to convey. So saw a guy out of Florida yesterday. It popped up in my Instagram feed. It was a video of him and his two kids running and jumping in the pool in their backyard.
Okay.
And then it had text overlay on the video, and it said, don't do these 5 things if you're trying to buy a house in the next 6 months. And then whatever he would have verbally said, he typed out in the captions on Instagram, bullet pointed. There was no, what do you call that? Captions like on the overlaid on the video, because everything that was being said was typed out.
Was typed.
And then it was on like a 5-second loop.
Yeah.
And then so I went and looked on the rest of his reels, looked at his green screen videos, looked at his video memes. And I think it's a meme, I guess because of the caption over the text overlay, and then the engagement was higher, like the likes and the comments on some of those than they were on like talking head videos.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
So what's the takeaway with that? It doesn't have to be difficult.
It doesn't. And I think what I know from the people I do life with, I do work with, like they want authentic. They want real.
Yeah.
You don't have to put on a facade. Just be who you are, be knowledgeable, be an expert in whatever it is you're delivering. And you're going to work with people that jive with your personality. You know, like I love what I do. I love helping people reach their goals. I love the relationships that form. I do stay in contact with pretty much all of my clients in some form or fashion. You know, every year we do the Realtor Gumbo Cook-Off, and every year I invite every past client.
That's a good idea. To
come to that event, and I'll offer to pay for, a couple of tickets for their families to be out there, because it's just a great time. It's family friendly, which I think is super important. You don't have to worry. A lot of times people don't want to take their kids downtown. This is a very controlled, safe, family friendly environment. It's great gumbo. And it gives me a chance to hug their neck, shake their hand, and let them go have fun. There's live music. So it's important that we stay in touch with them and stay in front of them in real life and on our devices.
That's right.
I also don't.
It's called being omnipresent.
Right.
So many vocabulary, new words I had to add this year.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the word omnipresent?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm behind.
But I didn't know what a video meme was, so you educated me.
Yeah? So I provided value to you today?
You did. Now I'm going to go make some.
Okay.
Try to.
So tell me some of your funny, crazy, outlandish real estate stories. I'm sure you've had at least one. You mentioned earlier you've been working since 2009. So it's 15-year anniversary this year?
It will be, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a long time. And prior to getting my license to be a realtor, I was a real estate paralegal for 12 years. So I have done real estate my entire adult life. Like I started at 20. I'm going to be 47 this year. So I've been doing this for a long time.
Okay.
So there's a lot of crazy stories, but I hinted around to you. There's this one showing I'll never forget. It's maybe like in Church Point or something. We're going out to see this property. The listing agent calls me and says, hey, if there's a monkey loose in the house, don't go in the house. So I'm like, what kind of monkey? And he's like, just don't go in the house. If you see the monkeys not in the cage, don't go in. I'm
like a dog named Monkey?
No, like a monkey, like from the zoo.
A monkey?
A real monkey. So I'm like, okay. So I'm still thinking like, oh, it's going to be like a cute, maybe like little, I don't know much about monkeys, a little monkey.
Did you keep asking questions? Because I want to ask you so many.
But he wouldn't answer.
I want to ask you so many questions right now.
All he kept saying was, if the monkey's not in its cage, don't go inside. Leave. So I'm like, okay, all right, we're going to figure this out. So we drive all the way out there. I get there. My clients are there. And one of the clients, it's like a mom and dad, and the son was there, and the son's a firefighter. So we get to the house, the lockbox won't open. So I call the listing agent. Hey, the lockbox is not opening. He's like, you have permission to go in, just again, figure out how to get in. And he's like, you might have to go through the monkey cage. So I'm like, what? Wait, you just told me if the monkey is loose, don't go in. Now you want me to go through a monkey cage. So long story, I get to the back of the house.
I want the whole story.
The whole back patio, like a huge, I don't know, 30-foot by 20-foot patio is a monkey cage. So it's not like a cute little, like a little monkey. It's clearly something huge. There's feces, there's big tire swings, there's big rope swings. There's all these things in this monkey cage.
Okay.
And the agent's like, here's how you get in the cage, and the back door to the house is open. I'm like, gonna get attacked by a gorilla.
So it's like walking through the zoo to get to the house? Mm-hmm. Am I understanding the visual?
So I get into this monkey cage. My clients are all outside, like dying, think I'm crazy.
Did you have a taser?
I had nothing.
A gun? Nothing? A baseball bat?
And again, it's for a monkey. So it's kind of like an obstacle course. So I get into the house. I don't see a monkey. I'm completely alone. I don't even know what I would do if I did see a monkey, because clearly this is a big animal. So I'm like, okay. So I go to the front door. I open the door, and my clients come in. We view the house. There's no monkey, but there's evidence that it has been in the house. So I'm scared the whole freaking time we're in there. So we go to leave. It's my job to secure the property. So I don't feel comfortable not locking it back up. At the same time, I can't get the lockbox to get the key. So we locked it.
Was it actually there, though?
We never saw
it. The lockbox.
Oh, the lockbox was there.
Okay, so the monkey did not take the lockbox. Okay.
So we locked the front door. We locked the monkey cage door. My clients are outside. The parents are outside, and I'm left with a firefighter in the house because we're like, I gotta secure the property. So we climb out a window.
Okay.
To make sure the house is secure. Never saw the monkey, just evidence of one. But I will never forget going through the cage to get in the house and being scared like there's a gorilla inside.
They never told you if it was a chimp, an orangutan, some sort of like...
They just kept saying, if the monkey is not in the cage, don't go in. Now, clearly a monkey lived there at some point. Maybe the agent was like pulling my leg the whole time and knew the monkey was going to be there. I don't know. But it was interesting, to say the least.
Did the clients buy that house?
No, it was a hot mess.
I can't imagine.
The monkey lived in it.
Yeah, I think I would have rescheduled,
mess.
like, hey, we're not going to go look at that one.
But when you get to those kind of properties, you kind of have to see them. Like, you have to go in it.
It's a memory.
It's a memory.
It's a story.
There's so many stories. I feel like I should write a book on all the stories. Like, there's one more. We show up. A homeless person had broken into a house, and he's there in like his silk boxers. It's me and my female client, and he's telling us how he's the owner of Cosmopolitan magazine. And he wants to do a photo spreadsheet of me and my client. He's going to put us...
Were you confused because you thought he was actually the owner of Vogue?
I totally thought that.
Okay, I figured.
We laughed and laughed and laughed. It was the funniest thing, and he was dead serious. Like, and he wanted us to come in the house. We're like, we're not going to come in the house. We're good, thank you.
Yeah. I'm dead serious too. Like every time you go to the grocery store again, and you see the Vogue magazine, now you're going to think about that guy.
Standing in his little rayon boxers.
You're welcome. Happy Friday.
Yeah. So there's so many of those stories.
Wow.
There's so many.
So do you get them out? Do you turn around and walk away?
So,
do you
again,
phone a friend?
As a realtor, the right thing is to protect the clients and the property. So on Mr. Vogue, I called the listing agent. I said, hey, clearly someone broke into the house and he's still here.
So the listing agent
So the listing agent called the
seller.
cops.
Okay.
The cops made, they took him away. And my client still wanted to see the house. So we went and saw the house.
Did she buy that one?
She did not buy that
Okay.
one.
So we don't have a good batting average right now.
No, if something crazy happens, it's probably going to leave the buyer feeling very weird. I mean, would you want to buy a house that a homeless person broke into? No. I mean, just seems unsafe. A little bit unsafe, maybe. So no, we didn't buy that house.
Man. That's wild.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of funny stories out there.
I'm trying to think of one from our end. They're not quite as dramatic just because there's not the in-person stuff. I did have a guy buy a car about 11 days before we were supposed to close, a truck.
Wow. Killed the deal.
Completely.
Yeah.
Very, in a measured way, I had to basically tell him the house that he was buying had wheels on it.
I had a lender one time. This sounds crazy. They had gotten married. A couple got married. He had horrible credit, like so bad. So the lender recommended that they get divorced. She buy the house and then they get remarried. And so that is what we did for them to buy a house. I didn't make them do that.
Wow.
They got a divorce. She bought the house and like 90 days later they got remarried. Crazy.
Creative.
It's creative.
I had a veteran couple get married one time in order
To buy the house. Yeah.
Yep. VA loans kind of don't keep with the times. Mm-hmm. If there's another borrower on a loan, it has to be a spouse.
Okay.
They were engaged.
Right.
They were going to get married at some point.
So just go.
Fiance wanted the house. The gentleman veteran was like, "Well, if I can't do it alone, what do I do?" Mm-hmm. And it came out pretty naturally. I was like, "Why do you move up your timeline?" And lo and behold, they went to the courthouse sometime in the next 5 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. So one of our underwriting conditions was we had to prove that they were married because all of the documentation was
Single.
just different names.
Yeah.
I had to connect the dots for them. But yeah, got married to do VA.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
We see a lot of things in this world. It's so much more than just selling houses. Like it's people's lives. They allow us into such an intimate part of their world and their process, and they trust us. So if you tell them to get married, they get married.
Wow. Well, I guess, at least I bring people together. It sounds like the other person broke somebody up, but
And again,
I'll put that feather in my cap.
It was a temporary divorce.
No, I understand.
They had literally just gotten married. They were honeymooners. They weren't offended by it at all. They were like, okay, if that's what we're going to do.
So they weren't taking 15 steps back after being married for a decade.
To them, it was a piece of paper. Gotcha. And they wanted the house that bad. So for them, it was another piece of paper.
I mean, that's a testament also to when someone calls you and they're like, hey, how do I want to do, they start asking you questions, and I don't know how it works for you, but sometimes I can detect people getting a little frustrated that there's a lot of if this, then that language, it depends, that sort of stuff.
Right.
But that's a perfect example. The next time a veteran calls me hey, look, I've had people who had to get married before.
Right.
If tell me all of the details.
For that person, they're going to disclose that. Heck
Sure.
no, we just want to be engaged forever. They're going to say that, right? But if it's right for them, then all you did was encourage them.
Yeah, just a little nudge.
Right.
Right. And I told him too, I was like, listen, I don't want to fast forward everything too much.
Right.
but the thing that you're
It is a
wanting
way.
is one of the catalysts that's going to ultimately be the foundation of this family that you eventually want to start together anyway.
Yeah.
So like if you already know you want to go there,
Yeah.
let's start the party sooner. You know, so that's crazy. So yeah, I had a guy do that. And the crazy part, and it just goes to show you how like you really have to take yourself, I know I do, out of my realm of knowledge, because sometimes I get trapped thinking like, hey, everybody should know this. But they don't do it every day.
Yeah, no.
The gentleman that had purchased the truck, we had a debt to income ratio problem.
Right.
So he had, I think I mostly remember, he had about a $900 truck note at the time. The math worked on the house. Went and got a $1,400 truck note, and had to ask him. I was like, "Why?" Well, he said, "Well, I thought it would help me buy the house, which I can't just leave." So I was like, "Well, deconstruct your decision. Like, why did you think?" And he said, "Well, they gave me $10,000 more
For the
trade than what it was worth, but I didn't apply it to the new purchase. I received it in cash." So he thought like, hey, my bank account's bigger. It's going to help me buy the house. Mm-hmm. I never needed that $10,000 to buy the house.
Right.
But I understand where you're coming from, but here's ultimately like how that affected you.
So as a coach, you know, one of the things that I say to my clients when we first start working together is I ask their permission on how they want me to speak to them, because I never want someone to feel like I'm speaking down to them.
Right.
So I ask permission, like...
And even then, you may still inadvertently do it anyway. Everyone receives things differently.
Right. I feel like I have learned to be so very clear, and then I ask for that feedback immediately back. Because if I need to correct anything or maybe apologize for anything, I want to do that in the moment. I don't want it to fester overnight or for 2 or 3 days. So I'll usually say something along the lines of, do you want me to explain to you step by step the purchasing process? Have you purchased a home before? Or I know you have purchased a home before. How in detail do you want me to go? Every single buyer, when I'm talking to buyers, they want me to go step one, even if they've bought a home before. I think they want that refresher. They want to know, hey, how do I work? And what are the steps 1 through 12? So we verbally go over it.
I think what it probably gives them a signal too that you're receptive to answering questions.
Absolutely.
That they may, this is our third house. Mm-hmm. I don't want to think we're dumb.
Yeah.
But then they know that you're basically welcoming.
I want all the questions. I don't want them to guess or wonder, and then, God forbid, go do something like that stops them from getting their dream home. And especially if you're too far along in the process and they've spent money on this, well, now you've paid for an appraisal. Now you've paid for an inspection. Now you're out all this money. Now the seller's hurt because you've pulled their property off the market for 30 days, 40 days. So if we can avoid that by having a very step-by-step, simple conversation up front, respectfully, and I tell people this all the time, if you're teaching me something new, I will tell people like my investor or my tax, CPA, I'm like, talk to me like a third grader.
Yeah.
So that I really comprehend and I can stop you and ask questions along the way. Like, I'm not offended. I don't understand taxes. I don't understand investments. So I had to pick people that were willing to give me that extra time and educate me along the way. Over the years, I feel like, I can have an okay conversation about this now.
You're functional.
But it still terrifies me.
Right.
I don't.
Or you don't do it every day.
No, I don't. I would never want to do that.
That's why you hire somebody who lives in it all the time.
Right. And so I think it's the same in our world. When we ask the client upfront permission, how would you like me to explain things to you? I mean, think about it. If you're talking to maybe someone who has a prestigious job and they make a good income or whatnot, you don't want them to feel like you're being offensive to them. You also don't want a first-time home buyer to feel like you're being offensive. So it's like, how do you want me to explain this to you? What I like to do is break it down in the most simplistic form so that I know you know the next step. So we have the conversation, but then there's emails and text messages that follow up, like, here's the next step. And I give them 1 or 2 nuggets. We go through the whole thing verbally, but then they get, here's the next step, here's the next step, here's the next step. That way they're not overwhelmed, especially when it comes to buyers. Sellers is a whole different conversation.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot more. I don't know that I've ever asked that question.
How would you like
I do ask, like, what's the easiest way to get in touch with you?
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we live out of inboxes.
Right.
And we also text like crazy, and we talk on the phone like this. So for us, it's like 360 degrees of, my favorite is when the client's like, hey, I just emailed you whatever. I'm like, oh, I know. I know everything all the time.
Right.
But I have someone closing today. His preferred method was phone. Right. Send an email, send a text. I know that when the phone rings from him, he just got an email. Right. But so for me, email functioned as talking points. Because it was very layered. It was some steps that we had to do. And that way, like, even if I was away from the computer, I know I could pull up the email on the phone.
Right.
If I was at the soccer field with the kids and make sure we covered everything. And it was very thorough. And I didn't have to say, well, hey, I don't know. I'm not in front of the computer.
Yeah.
Because it was basically like the script of things that I wanted to make sure that we covered.
I started producing for buyers and sellers. It's a PDF, right? But it's an image, and it literally is like the address, the date we went under contract, all the steps with the timeline, with the date next to it, the expectation of the seller. So are they paying any closing costs? Are they leaving a washer and dryer? Like, everything is on literally one little piece of paper, right? And then I send that to the other agent, and I send that to my client. I can't send it to the other side because I don't have access to that person. I email it, but then I also text message it. So when they say, oh, what's what? I can go back to that image. And it's just called important dates. That's it. And so it makes it super simple for us to all have access to every single highlight of the contract. It has the lender's contact information, has the title company's contact information. Like, every little thing is in that one little PDF. That way it just keeps it simple, and they can't forget. And I can reference it, and they can reference it, and even the other agent can reference it. And you don't have to go dig through thousands of emails.
Sure.
It's literally just a PDF sitting in their phone.
I'll give you my email after the show.
You want a PDF?
Yeah. It's everything else, right? You take best practices, make them your own.
Absolutely.
Leave things out, pull things in.
Yep.
You're kind of making me want to make a flow chart for the steps.
And it has to be with the way people run, and God forbid, like those who have multiple kids and they have a softball practice here, a baseball practice here, it's insane the way that most of us live our lives. They need fast answers. They need to click one thing. What I have discovered, and I'm only going by what I like too, but also the feedback from my clients, they don't want to scroll through the text message to try to find the answer. But you could simply go to like the saved images and like, oh, here's everything I need in one little picture.
I like it.
So it's super simple. I'll share it with you.
Going back to what you said, how would you like me to speak to you? Like, how granular, how basic, breaking it down. I know. I'd never asked it in that way, but what I do say when I preface some of those conversations is, look, you probably already know this, so forgive me if it's repetitious. And then I'll hop into whatever. And I find that works too.
It does.
So I think I may incorporate both.
Right.
The upfront stuff in case they forgot that conversation. Right. I don't know what I did 10 minutes ago. Maybe they forget that if it was last week.
Right.
And then just start kind of, I don't know if it's disarming. Is it just kind of lowering what would you call that?
I think
I said preface, but it's just making sure everyone's open. Like, hey, I respect you. You probably, I'm edifying their intelligence and their experience. Right. But then maybe they just go with it, right? And then we get off the phone and like, damn, I forgot about 7 of those things. And I didn't know number 8. Only 2 of those were repetitious.
Right.
I mean, that's across the board really for any discipline. But it's interesting, and it varies wildly.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a second-time home buyer who does whatever professionally, and then sometimes I'll have like a 5th-time home buyer who has 3 master's degrees.
Right.
And sometimes the 3 master's degrees are the ones that, it catches you off guard. But again, get out of the bubble.
Yeah.
Like they're very specialized at what they do.
They're an expert in their field, not in buying and selling houses.
That's right.
That's not what they do on a daily basis. So we have to understand that. And truly, even if they know, if the client says, oh, I know, all right, I bought a house before, I know. I'm like, okay, well.
When was the last time you did that?
Right. can I give you at least a brief overview? I'm always going to send something in writing, even if they don't want to have the verbal conversation, which really doesn't happen. They might, the whole time I'm talking about, I know. They might do that, and that's fine. But part of it is covering our own selves. I need to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into.
You never told me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that has happened.
Yeah.
And then I get the chance to say, well, remember we had this conversation, remember the email, remember the text message. And it's not to hurt or like, I'm right, you're wrong. That's not it at all. And I just had this conversation with a buyer recently, and she was upset about some things. Unfortunately, last minute, she ended up getting declined the loan. That's a whole nother story. But at first,
Didn't
she
you
was
post a
offended.
reel about that?
I did.
Okay.
Because she was
I
very
told you I've been seeing you.
emotionally hurt.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm going to give her the space to feel the feelings. But if you're going to attack me, then understand that I'm going to respectfully defend myself, not in I'm right. I very much pride myself in educating people along the way. Like, my passion is helping others reach their goals. I'm not going to drop the ball on that. I might drop the ball on working out or washing my dishes or whatever. I'm not going to drop the ball on representing my clients. That's a non-negotiable for me. And, I do my very, very best to make sure I'm very clear with them on the next steps, the expectations, the what's going to happen. So, yeah, you have to communicate. You have to have clear communication. And being a life coach, not only have I learned how to communicate better, I've learned how to listen. And that's actively listening is the number one thing I would recommend for everyone. Like parents, husband and wife, career, you have to actively listen. And unfortunately, a lot of people listen, and the whole time I'm talking, you're thinking like, what am I going to say next? How am I going to be included or involved in the conversation instead of listening to process and understand? So if you're correcting your children or listening to them about their day, or maybe they had a fight with a friend, you have to break it down, and you also have to understand, what is this person wanting from me? Do they just want me to listen? Do they want me to help in any form or fashion? Do they want me to fix it for them? And so learning to actively listen allows you the space and allows the person you're having a conversation with this space to truly explore, what is the outcome that we want to happen from this? I wish everyone would get that tool. That's literally
Active listening.
Active listening.
A coaching group that I belong to, one thing that they say, that they've been teaching this year, the sales process the sales cycle is a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this off camera, going deeper, not necessarily wider. Mm-hmm. Or if make sure you're doing both.
Right.
Well, hey, things are challenging, prospective home buyers are having these issues, or I can't uncover all of their needs. And it's like, quit talking to them. Mm-hmm. Definitely don't talk at them. Mm-hmm. And just be kind and keep your mouth shut and listen.
Yeah.
Because if you ask the right questions mm-hmm. and then listen, they'll tell you everything that they need.
Life Coaching 101. My biggest training is, I don't ever guide people when I'm coaching them on what to do with their lives. It's their life. I don't want to be responsible to tell you what to do with your life. My job is to ask you a series of questions to help you find your own answers. And that goes for real estate too. Like if you come to me, let's say you want to buy a house and you say, I have to have 4 bedrooms, but then you keep asking to see 3-bedroom houses, I'm just going to propose the question back to you. Okay, you said you had to have 4 bedrooms. Why do you want to go see this 3-bedroom house? It's okay. I'm not judging. If you're willing to change your must-haves, we can go do whatever it is you want. I'm here to serve you. But let's be honest. Are you settling? Do you really have to have 4 bedrooms? Or is that more of a like to have? If it's a must-have, then don't settle. I don't care if it takes us 4 months to find you the perfect home. Don't settle. If you must have X, let's find it. Let's commit to finding it.
Non-negotiables. We had a list of non-negotiables. Mm-hmm. We talked about that on a previous episode. The big thing, what I refer to it as, what's the number one thing?
Yeah.
I incorporate that dialogue mm-hmm. a lot into the conversations. What's your goal? What's your goal?
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, I'm trying to buy a house. I don't understand the question.
Right.
You know, in our context, it's through financing.
Right. So yours is going to be different. Maybe the goal is I don't want to pay more than $1,500 a month on a house, right?
I don't want to be cash to close heavy. I want my payment to be, you know, whatever it is. I would like to start, you know, we discuss a lot about wealth building also.
Yeah.
I mean, the same way people have asset managers, we're asset managers too, except it's just a different side of the balance sheet.
Right.
You know, it's debt-based asset management, which is important.
Yeah.
You know, and I would tell anyone listening, like if they're not having conversations like that with people like me that they work with, they're not having the right conversations.
Right.
But I'll ask, you know, and a lot, there is some overlap, right? We're a team if we're working together, because if it's like the three legs of a tripod, if one of them's messed up, everything falls over. I tell people all the time, you know, if one of us loses, we all lose.
Right.
So, like, hey, what are your top 5 things? Right. Well, I want to buy a house. Like, I understand that. But, like, what do you want to accomplish along the way? And then I'll have them rank them. And I'll tell them, like, look, if I don't, the way that I redirect, kind of like what you were talking about, is if I do number 2, 3, 4, and 5, but I don't do number 1, you'll never reach 100% satisfaction. So which one, let's change the conversation again. Now we're veering a little bit. We're at a fork in the road. Do you want to accomplish 2, 3, 4, and 5? Or do you want to make absolutely sure number 1 gets done?
Yep. It's the same conversation. Maybe a little bit different concept, but it's the same conversation. Yeah. Our job is to remind them what they said is their must-haves or, you know, whatnot, and keep them on track. It's okay to change. We just need to have another conversation, a different conversation.
In the life coaching stuff, would you say what percentage, or maybe it's all of it, I'm asking because I don't know, how much of it is accountability coaching? Or is that like an add-on if somebody wants it, or when you ask them like, hey, what are you trying to gain from me? So
it's me teaching you how to hold yourself accountable.
Okay.
You can have someone that calls you every day. Did you wake up?
Some people probably want that.
Brush your teeth. Right. Did you work out? You can. But is that really you growing? That's not you growing. That's you gaining a parent. You know, you do that with your children, right? Put your socks and shoes on. Go brush your teeth, clean your room. Like you do that with your children. As a life coach, my job is to help you discover what it is you're stuck. Like what's the stuck? What's the healing that needs to happen? And then to help you learn how to hold on to the reins of your own life. Because even when you finish the process.
And when you say stuck, you're talking about friction, bottlenecks,
it
pain
could
points.
Be a limiting belief. You know,
Sure.
I'm not good enough for XYZ or.
You and I got stuck on being too perfect in starting our video.
Right.
Maybe you experienced imposter syndrome briefly.
I don't think I experienced imposter syndrome. I guess it was more of, I'm either going to jump or I'm not. And which one is going to give me the better result is to jump. You know, I could stay stuck and not do it because it's not perfect. Or a lot of newer agents are terrified to make phone calls, like cold calling, right? They're sweating. They're almost crying. Like I remember my first cold call. I thought I was going to pass out. And then I finished the call and was like, well, that really wasn't a big deal because I'm providing a service and they either want the service or they don't want the service. But in life coaching, people get stuck for different reasons. They come to me for different reasons, right? And it's helping them explore that. It's helping them learn to give themselves permission to move past something. And the truth is, every single person, let's say it's a trauma that they're working through, not necessarily, but until you work through it, it's going to hinder you in your marriage. It's going to hinder you in your career. It's going to hinder you as a parent if you have some sort of trauma. But oftentimes people like to hold on to that story because it is also a part of their identity. Well, I had abusive parents, or I had this situation growing up, or I've got a divorce, or, you know, I have this past that I'm in, and they
I can't
hold
buy
on
a
to
house because no one in my family's ever bought one. So I'm
Right.
just going to be the next one in line.
Right.
Yeah.
And so part of their identity, they're holding on to this limiting belief. And the second we can work through and set them free of that limiting belief, I call those the aha moments. Like I see it when a client gets it and they're able to release years or decades of holding themselves back in life. There's always tears. I only coach women as far as life coaching is concerned. So there's always tears. They're always like, oh my God, if only I knew. And look, I didn't go into life coaching to be a life coach. That was not my goal. I went into life coaching to become a better mother as far as communication. And I knew Elizabeth and I were solid, but I also wanted to learn how to communicate with my ex-husband and then help my ex-husband and my daughter communicate. So I went into it to gain tools. And then once I got the tools,
Yeah, I mean, that's not an easy position to be in.
once I
You wanted to be highly
acquired them,
functional in that new.
right. It's a new world, right? And the more I did my own self-work, and then I finished the program, I was like, I want every woman to have these tools. Imagine if we can equip 20-year-old girls with these tools. What are they going to be like when they're 40? What are they going to be like when they become wives or mothers or whatever? Because we're going to pass that on to the next generation. I'm going to pass all of this on to Elizabeth just by living this way now. She's not going to get the broken version of me. She's going to get the healed version of me. And it's not about perfection. I still make mistakes, but she gets to watch me work through things in a healthier mindset. And she also gets to watch me not let fear take over. So she'll see some of my videos sometimes and she's like, why did you wear that? I'm like, I don't care. I felt like filming. Like I'm in an athletic jacket. I felt like filming. She's like, she's fashionista right now. So she's like, Mom, like, it's fine. It's fine, Elizabeth. So yeah, if we could, I only coach women. So it's kind of weird. I know men need this too, but they need to hear it from a man. I can't tell you how to be a man.
That's right.
I can't tell you that. That was loud.
Yeah, it's your perspective is different.
It is.
Your street cred is different.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't tell somebody how to be a mother.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
You don't do lending advice.
And there's so much to my story that we won't go into that I can relate to other women. I get it.
Well, you can't model someone who's, I can't become you.
Right.
Right. It's like little girls watch moms, the little boys, Anya and I talk about that all the time. Like they're always,
your sons are watching you.
They're always watching you. They're not going to grow up to be like me.
They're not going to grow up to be like
They can't model her because they're not going to end up like her.
But you know what they are going to do? They're going to look for a wife similar to her. So even though it's the opposite sex, they're going to remember the love, the nurturing, the tucking them in bed, all of those things. And one day they're going to want a wife, and she's teaching them, how does Anya speak to her husband? How does Anya speak to her children? How does she show up as the female, the dominant female in their life, and vice versa? So when we get that wrong, our children are going to make two choices. Either they're going to go pick the broken person, or they're going to say, heck no, and go the complete opposite and like be terrified of being with anyone that reminds them of their parent. So it is a delicate balance, and it is not about perfection. You're not going to get it right 100% of the time. But as a Christian, I believe like we get enough input of like, okay, I'm on the right path. Like I know I'm not going to drop the ball on my clients, and I am not going to drop the ball as a mother ever, period. Again, that doesn't mean I'm never going to make a mistake, but what it does mean is she will always know she's a priority, that I hear her, and that she is loved. And as long as every night I can tuck her into bed and she knows those things, or even when she's with her dad, it's super important that I speak to her on the phone, not because like I'm this controlling mom who has to know every detail of her day. I need her to know she's heard, she's a valued priority of mine, and that I love her. The end. Even if it's a 30-second phone call. Like, it's important to me that every day she knows that. So.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
I'm sure someone will take at least one thing out of the many you just mentioned in that 2 minutes.
I think what I would love people to know is that therapy shouldn't be anything you're embarrassed about. Whether you're hiring a counselor, whether you're doing life coaching, whatever route you choose, a mentor, whatever word you want to use in this day and age, all it is tools. It's like go and sit in a lecture. It's like go and sit in a classroom, right? You want to learn how to do sign language, you go sit in a class, you learn how to do sign language, right? Therapy is the same thing. You should be leaving every session with tools. If you're not, you might want to reevaluate who you're seeing. I love what I do. I love what I do in real estate. I love what I do in coaching people. I tell people all the time, like one of the things that I've learned about myself is my purpose in life is to guide others to their goals. Now, ultimately, it's to guide them back to Christ, but they have to do a part of that journey themselves, right? But it is to guide people, whether it's to buy a house or sell a house or work through some life issues. Like my jam, my passion is helping you achieve your goal. And then I know when I go to bed at night, like I nailed it. I helped one person. We all we live life, right? And we think about our eulogy. I definitely think about like when I die, what, fill in the blank. I don't ever want to be known as like, oh, you sold a lot of houses. Like, that's great, but that's not what I want in my eulogy. What I hope happens when I'm no longer on this planet is that Elizabeth hears stories of how I helped women specifically find their purpose, find their passion, find who they are in Christ, find who they are as an individual, heal trauma. Like, I want to know that when I leave, I've left impact on other people to become who they were designed to be. That would make me smile. Yeah. I hope through the years, Elizabeth runs into people that says, I knew your mom. Your mom could get choked up. Your mom helped me. I think if I were to extend the best thing that I learned for myself through my own journey is to cut yourself some slack. Like it is okay to be a hot mess sometimes. It's not okay to take that out on other people or attack people, right? But it's okay to not be okay from time to time.
Or be able to recenter.
Of course. You can't stay stuck. I mean, you can, but you're not going to get the life that you want, right? So it's finding the ability to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
That's really, if I summarize it into one word or one sentence, it's being able to give yourself grace and to be able to extend grace to others. We're all going to mess up sometimes. But when we learn to identify who we are, what our purpose is, what are your values, what's your number ones, what's your non-negotiables of life? Like you have a non-negotiable in lending. We have non-negotiables in finding houses, right? But what's your non-negotiables in life? So I teach this class to real estate agents and it's on goal setting.
Okay.
But it's not just about your numbers. Like what's the full balance of life you want to have? And there's been a lot of conversation lately about how it's impossible to have a balanced life, a work-life balance, right? Like that's impossible, but it's not. There's this book called The One Thing. I don't remember who the author is. I'd have to look that up to tell you, but the book is The One Thing. Everybody reads it a little bit different. You and I could read the same book. We're going to receive information differently. But what I took from that book is, so on a weekly basis, sometimes a daily basis, it's like, how did I show up as a real estate agent? How did I show up as a coach? How did I show up as a mom? How did I show up as a partner to Lewis? Like all these questions. And some days it's going to be a 0. Like I didn't show up at all to whatever it is. But now that I have that knowledge, I can adjust. So tomorrow I'm going to show up differently. If I drop the ball in this category, when you don't evaluate it, you can't course correct. But when you take the time to say, okay, how am I showing up in these categories that are important to me? Now I can make the adjustment. I can turn the 1 degree and I can do better the next day.
And it doesn't have to be drastic.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Gradual turn, as long as you're headed back to the right direction.
Right.
Or back to the foundation or back to the baseline.
And when you learn to live that way, and even I'm a huge fan of journaling or making, however you want to do it, right? Like writing it down in some form or fashion. You can go back and you can look at it and you have evidence. And the beauty of journaling is, let's say you get stuck. If you remember, oh, well, I was stuck like this 6 months ago, you could go back and read that journal entry. How was I feeling? What did I do about it?
What was going on in life at the time?
Right.
what were the stressors,
Yep.
the inputs.
And so that's in everything: career, relationships, significant other, parenting, like you name it. The tools are so easy. We humans like to complicate it. We want to make it harder than it really is.
Yeah.
And I get some people have really tough stories. I totally understand that. I definitely, as a life coach, don't want to dismiss that. And they have to decide, do they want to keep living that story or do they want to make a change? And if they want to make a change, there are steps and resources to allow that to happen. And, it may not be easy, but it's available.
So you ask people if they want to write another story?
Some form of that question, yeah.
You should make some really nice pins.
Yeah.
Symbolism.
Yeah, it's very true.
Here you go.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that in my coaching that I've been asked is like, what's the story you like to tell yourself?
That would actually, don't interrupt you. That would actually be a really good gift. You know why? Because I wouldn't journal.
But if you had that pen, you would?
Maybe.
I'm making you a pen. I'm going to freaking glue a piece of paper to a pen. Here's your pen.
Yeah, but that would be, maybe that's my tool.
So why do you not like to journal?
I don't know.
Let's pretend you do know.
Oof. Go deep on this one. Oh, man. What to figure out if we cut this or not. I don't think it's accepted, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Because you're a man?
Yeah.
So what could you personally, we're going to take away the rest of the world.
Uh-huh.
We're going to focus just on Derek.
Okay.
If you were to start journaling,
Mm-hmm.
do you believe that could be a valuable tool for you?
At this very second, answering you? No.
Okay. So you don't think you would get anything out of, say, brain dumping or making notes of where I am today versus where do I want to be in 6 months, and then in 6 months being able to look back at that?
I would say it'd be writing down goals, work, personal stuff like that. I don't necessarily think that I would call it journaling.
Okay. What would you call it? Note taking?
Note taking.
Okay, let's call it note taking.
Brain dumping.
Do you see a benefit in note taking and brain dumping?
I don't do it a lot. I think one thing, I'm looking through the lens of it with work. Okay, if I'm not where I am right now, where I want to be, well, I need to look back at the prior 90 days. What did my calendar look like? All right, so I guess maybe I journal on a calendar.
Okay.
Kind of.
So are you able to put emotions in that calendar?
No.
Okay.
No, I guess I would tell you men aren't allowed to have emotions.
Yeah.
But
Is that true?
I think so.
Would you tell Chase and Bryce that they're not allowed to have emotions?
I would tell them that there's a reason that daddies and husbands have broad shoulders.
Sure.
And a lot of it is to shoulder a lot of that.
Yeah.
Right.
So free of emotion is what a man is.
At the end of the day, if I wake up tomorrow and I don't feel like working, I don't really have a choice.
So is that really a feeling or is that a discipline?
I don't know.
Because even females, even women might not feel like going to work or working out or cleaning the house or cooking or changing another diaper, but they're going to do it. It doesn't matter how you feel in that moment, right? So there's a difference between a feeling and an emotion. What's the emotion? You worked a hard day at work and you're coming home to your wife and your kids. What's the emotion you want when you walk in the door?
From me or from them?
From them. What do you want to, what's the emotion you want inside of your body when you walk in the door?
So that they're happy to see me.
Yeah. Love, respect. Is that fair? Yeah. Do you always feel happy when you walk in the door? Mm-mm. But you still want the emotion of love and respect when you get home. So that's the beauty of journaling, right? We can talk about our feelings. We don't feel like a lot of things. You always feel like working out. Heck no. But do you like to come home and then be like, no, your wife thinks you're like looking good? Like,
I do make her feel my pump.
Okay. See, this is why I can't life coach a man, because I'd be like, get out. But there are these tools that are out there for men and women, right? And again, you're right. A lot of men are taught, don't feel, don't have emotions, don't be sensitive, don't cry, don't. And that's insane. Now, I'm not saying like you need to become a female, but giving yourself a pen and paper and getting it all out, even if it's anger, even if you're pissed off about something, now you can process it differently. Like when you dump it, so there's these journals that we call ugly journals. So let's say somebody has a lot that they need to get off their chest, a lot of trauma or hurt or whatever. It's an ugly journal. You put all the ugly in there, all the hurt, all the wish, shoulda, woulda, coulda, wish he or she shoulda, woulda, coulda, wish my parents shoulda, woulda, coulda. You get it all out, and now you get a choice. If it's all right here, do I want to hold on to this? Do I want to keep being this person who was hurt, who has this trauma, do I want to burn this and start a new story, like the pen that I'm going to have made?
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So how effective is that exercise? Like if you were to just
Tremendously.
50% of people let go? Less, more?
Every person I've coached, and I've only life coached 13, 15 people. I don't solicit that. I only coach if someone comes to me. They always move past whatever it is they're trying to move past, if they keep doing the work. Sometimes people like to hit pause, and then they'll come back to it, but sometimes they want to sit in that story a little longer, and that's okay. There's no judgment. But when you're ready to move past it, there are tools available. And look, it comes into the life coach. It comes into the real estate world way more than I ever thought that it would. But I've picked up clients because they see like, oh, you're a life coach too? They're curious. And the next thing I know, yes, we're looking at houses or selling a house together, but the conversations are so much deeper than the real estate conversation. And
even though there's a big overlap. You talk about the life coaching part. I'd say, hey, I'm taking my lender hat off now. I'm putting my friend hat on.
Right.
Since you asked.
There is not.
Right? And then
there's it just flows. It just flows. Like women will just open up and they'll tell me where their stuck is or why they're buying a house or why they're selling their house or whatever. And we work through the emotional side of it too. A home is not just a business transaction. There is an emotional aspect to buying and selling real estate. There are times that that's not the case. But for most people, if you're selling and you have decades of memories in a home.
Oh, yeah. I've had a lot of those actually.
It's not always easy for some people.
It's hey, I raised my family here. There's a lot of interaction between people at the closing table. They share stories that, it's not just keys and garage door openers, and they talk about the neighbors. They talk about, hey, the people are here. Our sons grew up together and they rode bikes.
Right.
A lot of crying. And then
it's happy, right?
It is.
Most of the time it's still happy.
The only sad ones, it was good emotions behind it, but a lot of the sadder ones is when you have the heirs.
Yeah, succession.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that takes a whole another delicate level of professionalism on my part and on your part. When it is a succession involved, then is this good? Is this bad? Are they happy? Are they sad? And there's been times where I've had buyers acquire succession properties because the seller asked more personal questions. Like, well, do they have children? These are things that we can't, you don't put it on the purchase agreement, like family of 5, blah, 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 right? But they'll ask questions or they'll want to know, or they'll look up their name and go find them on social media. And they will say at the closing table, I picked you because you look like the type of family I would want to live in my parents' home.
Right.
It's crazy. It's not just a transaction.
No, it's not. They that's the part you don't see.
Right.
You get 4 offers in.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah. When you purchased or when you sold?
Sold.
Yeah. You got multiple offers?
Multiple.
And how'd you pick your buyer? 2
of them were institutions.
Okay.
that were trying to buy up neighborhoods to rent houses out.
And you did not want to be a part of that?
Hell no.
Yeah. So you picked a family.
Grandparents.
Yeah. It matters.
It did to me.
It matters to some. And that's okay.
It did to me.
For us legally, we have to be careful because of fair housing law. But if the seller does the research and the seller says, I'm picking this buyer, it doesn't matter. You don't have to disclose the reason. That's the seller's choice. That's the seller's choice. I just can't, as an agent, I can't steer any of that.
Yeah. No, if feedback is solicited, that's one thing. Okay, here are the ones that I have. What are the pros and cons of each one?
For that, I talk contract only.
Right.
If they want to go on social media, I'm going to say 99.9% of the time you'll find someone, and then you can answer all your other questions.
That's right.
So we have to be very careful.
Another good reason to post evergreen content on YouTube.
Right.
It's all a circle.
Right. I mean, think about the dating world now. You don't go on a date without finding someone on social media.
I wouldn't know. I've been happily married.
People.
I've been happily married for 15 years to
Right.
probably the most beautiful woman in the
I
world.
totally agree with that. Y'all are an awesome couple. I love you guys.
Yeah. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not in the dating world anymore either, but I heard what I had heard was. He's silly.
No, it's I mean, we have young clients. One of the big things that I've been seeing now is, now we're in 2024. I mean, seeing birthdays, 2000, 2001, 2002. It's crazy. And then they're all out of college. And like, hey, are you going to have somebody else on the loan with you, a significant other, spouse, whatever?
Yeah.
Well, I am dating somebody, but we're not, whatever. And it's like, oh, that's cool. I just want to make sure I have to get their information or not. If you're married, we're in a community property state. There's certain things I have to do a little bit different. If you're legally married, those sorts of things. And some of people who travel a lot, or they'll just ask questions and just listen.
Right.
Like, hey, I don't have even time for that. And I'm like, man, what is it even like now? Like, I don't even know. But I see there's a lot of things that exist in people's lives now that didn't exist the last time that I was your age, know, and stuff like that. And then they just share stories, and it's fascinating.
So I interviewed someone yesterday for some social media and YouTube, and I asked, I made the comment, I said, what, I've known you for at least 30 years, right? And he says, well, I'm 33, and you've known me since I was at least 1, so 32 years. I'm like, thank you for that.
You babysat.
I did.
You did back then. How is the dynamic now?
I mean, he's in the industry. I adore him. He's great. And I trust him. I've known him literally his whole life. So there's this level of trust. And even when I send clients to him, so he's a custom builder director, I guess sales director for custom building. And so when I send him people, like, I know they're going to be taken care of. I've known him literally his whole life. The crazy thing is
you do the hand gesture. I've known you since you were this big. Yeah.
And I've sold houses to clients that I used to babysit. I didn't babysit a ton, but like that I've used to babysit. And now they're like married with children. I'm like, dear, I'm that age. I am that age. I am rapidly approaching 50, which is crazy. Good, better than the alternative.
Yeah. No, there's things you miss looking in the rearview mirror, but overall, we're where we're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
I had a former guest on last episode who I didn't even know he was in the military. He was telling me some extensive places where he was stationed, where he traveled and stuff. I had no idea, which was pretty neat. We're not big travelers.
Yeah.
But it got me curious when we were thinking about, what to discuss today. And it's probably something I'm going to ask everyone. What are some neat places that you've traveled?
So neat places I've traveled. I am an outdoors person.
Okay.
Not necessarily Louisiana because of bugs and mosquitoes and allergies, but when I leave the state, so we love cabins, we love hiking, we love being in the snow, all of that. But I think my favorite place was last summer. I took my daughter to Maui. And if we back up, right? So I had always said The summer before she goes to college, I wanted to take her to live in Maui for 30 days, like go for a whole month and just live there and immerse her into.
Before you ever took her at
I
all?
had been before.
Okay.
She had never been. And so the goal was to take her before she goes to college.
Because you loved it a lot.
I loved
That's
it.
a very specific goal.
I loved it. And one of the things I remember from going in my 20s was just the slow pace of life. There's no rush. I remember sitting in a restaurant thinking like, hurry up, we got the next thing to do. And the whole attitude of the culture that lives there is like, we're on island time. Like, it's just chill. It's just easy. There's no stress. It's every spot of it was beautiful. And so I knew I wanted to immerse her into that, not just visit it. But okay, whatever. So last year, I'm seeing that it's my best year of real estate ever. And something just hit my heart of like, I'm not promised
Anything.
to make it that long, or for her, and God forbid, I'm going to cry thinking about it. But I was like, okay, would I regret going now? That doesn't mean we still can't go for a month when she's 18. Like, would I regret taking her this summer? And the answer is absolutely no. That I would not regret. So we went for like 8 days. We went to Maui. It was such a beautiful and incredible experience, all of it. Every last bit of it. It put me out of my comfort zone. I've never taken her that far completely by myself. So that was a big step for me. And then we just did all these different experiences. So one of the best experiences, we did this rainforest hike. And part of the hike is diving into these waterfalls, right? And so we get to the first one, we get to the second one. The second one's 15 feet. I'm terrified of heights. So every year I set a goal like for my mental, physical, spiritual, and financial health, but I also have to do something that scares me.
Do you put that in your journal?
Oh yes, it's every year. So that was
Couldn't
not my scare me goal, but this opportunity presented itself.
What was your scare me goal?
Oh, you're gonna laugh. It's stupid to most people, but to me it's a big deal. It was to hold a lizard. I'm terrified of lizards, like terrified. So
Even though you walk through the monkey cage?
Lizards freak me out.
Okay.
So we're on top of this mountain, on top of this cliff, and we're supposed to do this 15-foot dive, and I'm like paralyzed, but my daughter wants to go. And so she's like, come on. And I mean, my entire body from head to toe, I'm shaking, I'm crying. I cannot control it. That's how scared I was. So there was some other people jumping the whole time. And so there was another young girl, and I said, go with her, Elizabeth, jump with her. Like, I do not want to hold you back in life. And if I'm too scared to do this, please just go. So she does. She jumps. I'm so proud of her. She climbs back up and takes me by my hands, and she's like, you can do this. You are strong. You are brave. God has you. Like, you can do this. So I jumped. I don't need to ever do it a second time, but what I saw in that moment is not only am I teaching her how to be a strong Christian woman, which is the ultimate goal, right? But she got to see her mom do something scared. And that, to me, is priceless.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, let you know that she listens to you. She watches you.
She does. She does.
And then you got coached.
Yep. So she's gaining those tools that I wish I would have had at her age. I mean, she's 12. Imagine what she's going to be when she's 20. She had to do an assignment for school recently, and she shared it with me, and she had to pick 3 people that are her heroes. So one from the past, one current famous person, and then one person she knows in real life. And she said that I was her hero. And the description that she put was, because even when people have hurt me, I still choose kindness. And it was like,
damn.
Okay, I might mess up some stuff, but I'm not messing that up.
That's huge.
None of that I wouldn't be this person had I not gone through the entire journey of my life, right? But then also going through counseling, for sure.
Yeah.
And journaling, Derek.
Okay. Well, I'll put the ball back in your court. Make my pin.
Okay.
Okay, so Hawaii. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, we have, all 4 of us, even the kids have passports.
Yeah.
We have no
No
stamps.
stamps?
No stamps.
So when are you going to change that?
I don't know.
What if?
My pen will guide me.
Yeah. What if you got like this memo from above that said you're not guaranteed any time frame? Like, you might be going.
I'm well aware I'm on the back nine.
Yeah.
You know, to use a golf analogy, and I don't play golf.
Yeah.
But something we went to. You said hiking and snow. I'm assuming like you like the Gatlinburg, Tennessee area.
We actually go to Colorado. We love Colorado. I have a brother that lives there. I now have a client that just moved there. And so they keep begging us to go. But we've been to Colorado quite a few times. We've done North Carolina. We love it all. Whitewater rafting.
Okay.
We love it, all of it. We took the kids snowboarding. I broke my wrist, so I don't need to do that again. Not going to do that again, but we took them tubing. We did snowmobile rides. Like, I'm not a big spender. I save, but when I spend, it's always on a trip. I love experiences. And so I'm hoping to teach Elizabeth that too. Like, maybe you're a little more frugal in this department so that you can explore the world.
Sure.
At the end of the day, like, we all love different things. Mine just happens to be travel and experiences.
I'll have to get with you on the Colorado stuff. Mm-hmm. After doing Tennessee, the kids loved it.
Yeah.
Anya loved it. So I said, well, hey, let's move to the West Coast mountain range. We'll have done both.
Yeah.
And then after that, incorporate one. Maybe they rotate. Maybe they find that one's head and shoulders above the other for preference. But either way, they'll like them.
We've been to Colorado so much that, again, we still have time, but Elizabeth says she wants to move there. She says that's where she wants to go. That's where she wants to live. That's where she wants to have her own family. And she's like, Mom, when you're old, you could come live in my basement. I'm like, okay, there's nice basements in Colorado. I'll do that. I'll do that.
Anything outside of the contiguous 50 states?
I've done a few, like I did St. John, St. Lucia. I mean, they're great. I'll travel just about anywhere. I've done a few things in Mexico.
Okay.
They're all wonderful. I think the difference, like, those were pre-being a mom. And not that I don't still love adult vacationing, or like if Lewis and I take a trip, just he and I, it's not that I still enjoy that, right? Yeah. But there's something about experiencing it with your child, knowing you're giving them something no one else could give them. Like, you're giving them this experience of this other piece of the world that until you did that, they had no clue. Your kids had no clue what snow was living in Louisiana until you showed them snow. They have no clue what a nice beach is until you show it to them. So like, you're helping them develop who they are by taking them on these experiences, on these adventures. Perfect world. I don't know. We've talked about, or at least me, I want to do Italy and Japan. Yeah. I think those would be kind of on the list. How does the Italy trip turn? You know, because at that point you're in Europe. Right. But so we've talked about, now that we've done Hawaii, I mean, we could go back, right? But maybe that month before college, maybe now we go somewhere in Europe. Maybe we make it a different trip. I hear in Italy, it's very similar to what you were talking about in Maui. Yeah. 3-hour lunches. Yeah. Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just people, like the cafes filled up, you know, whatever they're called, and people just sit there. Yeah. And eat and drink and smoke. Yeah. And then they go back to work. Right. And all is fine, I guess. Right. If it wasn't, they wouldn't do it anymore. Very true. Crazy how people do things different. Mm-hmm. Well, Melissa, thanks for coming today. Thank you for having me. I had a sneaking suspicion you would stump me on some of your questions. So I wanted to tell you that whether they were intended or not, that you succeeded. But I think this was I'm glad you came. I think a lot of people will get a lot of good stuff out of it, and not necessarily the things maybe they came to watch for. Yeah. So glad you came. What are people want to find you online? What are kind of the top 2 or 3 platforms on social media? I think the biggest audience is Facebook. And then I do have Instagram as well. And it's just my name, Melissa Gaubert, or Melissa Gaubert Realtor. And yeah, that's probably the easiest way to find me. Good deal. Well, I'm sure a lot of people will be looking for you. Thank you. Yeah. It was a pleasure being here. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Derek.